Many books throughout the Bible are mentioned maybe once or twice and then simply vanish from history. Think about King Solomon. Supposedly, there was a complete record of him being the wisest king who ever lived. His supernatural acts, his secret dealings, his incredible achievements, all of it documented in painstaking detail, and then it mysteriously erased from existence. Welcome back to Arnie's Brain Train. I'm Alex Arnold, and today we're investigating the forbidden chronicles that could rewrite everything we know about the legendary King Solomon. Before we go any further, I just wanted to note that all of my sources are in the description below. This isn't just speculation, but this is actual documented historical mystery at its finest. Let's roll. So the whole mystery begins in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 41. There's this almost throwaway line that says, "And the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon?" So, hold up. What other events? What chronicles? The Bible is essentially saying, oh, by the way, there's this whole other book about Solomon that has way more details than what we're giving here. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bible story, let me explain. The Bible gives us some pretty incredible stories about Solomon. He built the temple, he was the wisest man alive, he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, he could speak to animals, but apparently that was just the highlight reel. There was supposedly an entire separate book documenting everything else that he did. In ancient times, royal courts kept detailed records called annals. These were like the official government documents of their day. They recorded everything: military campaigns, building projects, diplomatic meetings, legal decisions, and yes, even the king's demonstrations of wisdom and supernatural abilities. But here's the million-shekel question. If this book was important enough to be mentioned in the Bible itself, where did it go? To understand what we're missing, we're going to time travel to around 970 BCE, to the height of King Solomon's reign. Think about this. Israel was at its absolute peak. This was a kingdom stretching from Egypt to the Euphrates River, with wealth flowing in from trade routes, and a king so legendary that the Queen of Sheba traveled over 1,000 miles just to test his wisdom. Now, during this golden age, Solomon wasn't just sitting around being wise. According to the biblical account, he was running a massive bureaucratic machine. He had governors overseeing 12 districts, he was managing international trade deals, overseeing massive construction projects, and apparently performing acts of wisdom so incredible that they needed to be documented. Ancient Near Eastern kingdoms were obsessed with record keeping. The Assyrians kept detailed annals, the Babylonians maintained extensive chronicles, and Egypt had scribes documenting everything the pharaohs did. Solomon's court would have been no different. In fact, it probably would have been even more sophisticated, given the international nature of his kingdom. And if you thought these royal annals were just dry administrative records, you'd be wrong. They were actually propaganda pieces, designed to showcase the king's greatness for posterity. They would have contained detailed accounts of Solomon's wisdom in action, his famous legal decisions, his diplomatic negotiations, maybe even accounts of his supernatural abilities that the Bible only hints at. So we can pretty much say that we know this book existed, we know why it would have been created, and we even know it was considered important enough to reference in Scripture. The question is, what happened to it? Here's where things get really interesting and frustrating. Despite multiple archaeological expeditions across Israel, Jordan, and surrounding regions, not a single fragment of the Book of the Acts of Solomon has ever been found. Not one piece. But wait now, before you click on another video, let's talk about what has been found. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd looking for a lost goat stumbled upon the Dead Sea Scrolls, over 900 ancient documents that had been hidden for nearly 2,000 years. These scrolls completely revolutionized our understanding of ancient Judaism and early Christianity.
Then there's the Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in Egypt in 1945. 13 leather-bound codices containing lost Gnostic texts. And just in 2008, archaeologists found a 1,500-year-old gospel in an Egyptian monastery that had been thought to have been lost forever. So ancient texts do survive, and they do get rediscovered, which makes Solomon's missing chronicles even more mysterious. For something so important, where are they? Now let's talk about the possibilities. The innocent explanation? Ancient documents were typically written on papyrus or leather, and in the Mediterranean climate, organic materials deteriorate pretty quickly. Just think about the fact that this was a 3,000-year-old book in a region that's seen countless wars, invasions, and natural disasters. Now this is where you might start raising eyebrows. What if the disappearance wasn't accidental? Now, I want to be very clear. What I'm about to discuss is pure speculation, not established fact. But some researchers have suggested that certain ancient texts might have been deliberately suppressed or destroyed. Think about it. If Solomon's Chronicles contained any information that contradicted later religious doctrines or revealed supernatural practices that religious authorities found uncomfortable, there might have been motivation to make them disappear. Throughout history, we've seen religious institutions suppress texts that they deemed heretical or dangerous. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE famously decided which Christian texts would be considered canonical and which would be rejected. But the mystery deepens even further. We have found other ancient administrative documents from this general time period and region. Archaeologists have discovered ostraca, that's inscribed pottery fragments, containing administrative records from various Israelite sites. So we know the infrastructure for record keeping existed, and other documents from this era have survived. Really, the fact that such an important document has completely vanished from the archaeological record is genuinely puzzling. It's like if all copies of the Declaration of Independence just disappeared, and we only knew about it because someone mentioned it in a letter. The question is, was this disappearance natural, or was it helped along? It's critical for us to understand how knowledge gets preserved, lost, and sometimes deliberately erased throughout history. The story of Solomon's Lost Chronicles teaches us about the fragility of human knowledge and why we should never take our historical records for granted. So what exactly are we missing? Based on what we know about ancient royal annals and the hints in the biblical text, this lost book would have been absolutely incredible. First, we're likely missing out on detailed accounts of Solomon's famous wisdom in action. The Bible gives us a few examples, like the story of the two women fighting over a baby. But imagine an entire collection of his legal decisions, his diplomatic negotiations, his problem-solving techniques. This could have been like having a manual written by the wisest person who ever lived. According to various ancient traditions, Solomon didn't just have normal human wisdom. Jewish folklore suggests that he could understand the language of animals and birds. Islamic traditions say that he commanded an army of jinn, supernatural beings. Even some early Christian texts hint at Solomon having power over demons and supernatural forces. Now just imagine if the Chronicles had documented how he did these things. We might be missing what amounts to ancient instruction manuals for supernatural abilities. Of course, this is all speculation, but think about it. If you are a court scribe documenting a king who could literally command supernatural beings, wouldn't you want to record the methods? Second, we're likely missing comprehensive records of his building projects. Sure, we know about the temple, but Solomon built palaces, fortifications, entire cities. The Lost Chronicles probably contain detailed architectural plans, construction techniques, and maybe even the secrets behind some of his most impressive structures. Here's another one that some people don't know. Ancient texts suggest Solomon had access to knowledge from all over the known world. The Queen of Sheba brought him wisdom from Africa. He had diplomatic relations with Egypt and Phoenicia. Traders brought him information from as far as India and possibly even China. The Chronicles might have been like an ancient encyclopedia of world knowledge. Third, and this is where it gets really intriguing, we might be missing political and diplomatic secrets that would rewrite our understanding of ancient international relations. Solomon's kingdom was a major power broker in the ancient world. What deals did he make? What alliances did he forge? What happened in those famous diplomatic meetings? It's very likely that someone would want to document the reign of someone who managed to maintain peace with Egypt, Phoenicia, and numerous other powers simultaneously, while building the richest kingdom of the ancient world. Wouldn't you want to record exactly how he pulled that off? We might be missing ancient lessons in diplomacy and statecraft that would be invaluable even today. Now, as with many of these obscure and barely mentioned books, the rediscovery of this book wouldn't just be a historical curiosity. It could potentially shake the foundations of 3 major world religions. For Judaism, additional details about Solomon's reign and the temple construction could provide incredible insights into their most sacred traditions. The Temple Mount remains the holiest site in Judaism, and more details about the original temple could have profound religious implications. But here's the thing. What if the Chronicles revealed practices or beliefs that differed from modern Jewish orthodoxy? For Christianity, this could be huge. Jesus himself referenced Solomon in his teachings, calling him the wisest king. Christian tradition has long seen Solomon as a prefiguration of Christ's divine wisdom. If the Chronicles revealed more about Solomon's supernatural abilities or his relationship with God, it could influence Christian theology in ways that we can't even imagine. And as for Islam, this could be equally significant. Muslims revere Solomon, known as Suleiman in Arabic, as one of the greatest prophets. Islamic tradition already credits him with supernatural powers and the ability to control jinn. A rediscovered chronicle could either confirm these beliefs or challenge them in ways that would require serious theological consideration. Now, here's where we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Some researchers, and I want to emphasize that this is pure speculation, have suggested that certain religious texts might have been deliberately suppressed throughout history when they contradicted established doctrines. Now, we already know that this has happened before. The Gnostic Gospels were suppressed by early Christian authorities. Numerous heretical texts were ordered destroyed by various religious councils. Even in more recent times, the Catholic Church maintained an index of forbidden books until 1966. So here's the uncomfortable question. What if Solomon's Chronicles contained information that powerful religious authorities found problematic? What if they documented practices, beliefs, or supernatural techniques that didn't align with later religious orthodoxy? Once again, this is pure speculation, but think about it. Solomon lived in a time when magic, supernatural practices, and communication with various spiritual beings was considered normal. Later religious authorities might have found such detailed accounts uncomfortable or contradictory to their teachings. The potential for religious controversy is enormous. What if the Chronicles contradicted some established religious beliefs? What if they revealed aspects of Solomon's reign that modern religious leaders would find uncomfortable? The book's very existence poses questions about why certain texts made it into religious canons while others didn't. Of course, it's always equally possible that the Chronicles would support modern religious beliefs and provide incredible validation for existing traditions. The discovery could strengthen faith rather than challenge it. But the uncertainty itself is what makes this so controversial, and potentially so dangerous to established religious authority. Regardless of our religious beliefs, this mystery shows us how much of our ancient history is still hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Every archaeological dig, every ancient text that's found, has the potential to completely change our understanding of the past. So, are people still looking for this lost book? Of course they are. Modern archaeologists are using incredible technology to search for ancient documents. We're talking ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery that can detect buried structures, and preservation techniques that can recover text from documents that look completely destroyed. Here's why there's still hope. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls proved that ancient documents can survive in the right conditions. But that's not the only amazing rediscovery. In 1945, an Egyptian farmer digging for fertilizer stumbled upon the Nag Hammadi library. Then, of course, there's the Gospel of Judas, discovered in the 1970s but only properly translated in 2006, which completely changed how scholars view early Christian history. In 2012, researchers announced that they'd found fragments of the Gospel of John written on papyrus dating to around 125 CE, the oldest known fragment of the New Testament. Every year, archaeologists are finding new texts that fill in gaps in our historical knowledge. Just in the past decade, we've discovered ancient administrative documents, royal correspondences, and religious texts that have revolutionized our understanding of the ancient world. In 2016, researchers used multispectral imaging to read previously invisible text on ancient scrolls from Herculaneum that were buried by Mount Vesuvius. The Book of the Acts of Solomon remains one of the holy grails of biblical archaeology. Its discovery would be bigger than finding the Dead Sea Scrolls, bigger than discovering King Tut's tomb. We're talking about finding a find that would rewrite ancient history and influence billions of religious believers worldwide. Here's one more conspiratorial thought for you though. What if the book has been found, but certain powerful institutions don't want it public? Again, this is pure speculation. But throughout history, there have been claims that certain religious or governmental organizations possess ancient texts that they keep hidden from public view. The Vatican secret archives, for instance, contain an estimated 35,000 volumes of cataloged material, much of which has never been made public. Could Solomon's Chronicles be sitting in some hidden archive, deemed too controversial or dangerous for public consumption? We'll probably never know for sure, but it's a tantalizing possibility that keeps conspiracy theorists and legitimate researchers alike wondering what secrets might still be hidden away. So, we started with an obscure reference in the Bible to a book that documented all of Solomon's acts and wisdom. We learned that ancient royal courts routinely kept such detailed records, making the book's existence historically plausible. We explored how this comprehensive chronicle has completely vanished from the archaeological record despite extensive searches. We also examined what incredible information we might be missing, from wisdom techniques to supernatural abilities to architectural secrets. And we discovered how finding this book could potentially impact 3 major world religions in ways that we can barely imagine. There's still so much about our past that we don't know. Every ancient mystery reminds us that history isn't a closed book. It's an ongoing investigation, and the next big discovery could change everything that we thought we knew about the ancient world. And that's it for another journey aboard Arnie's Brain Train. If this deep dive into forbidden history got your curiosity firing on all cylinders, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. What other lost ancient books do you think are out there waiting to be discovered? Of course, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss our weekly adventures through history's greatest mysteries. And remember, all the sources I referenced today are linked in the description below. I always want you to be able to verify and explore these topics even deeper on your own. Join us next time as we always have new adventures coming out. Until then, keep those curious minds active, and remember, the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. This is Alex Arnold, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.